Welcome everyone to Beyond the Steps. It is Friday. It is 3:30 Eastern Time, and we are ready to have another wonderful show that's packed full of information. If you're joining us for the first time, this is Beyond the Steps. I am Melissa McDaniel Grisham with Turning Point Dance Creations, and this is my wonderful co-host, Bree Zabrowski from Apollo Performance. And every week we show up here to talk about all of the issues that are facing performance athletes, their coaches, their teachers, their parents, their family, and the community. Issues that are surrounding racism, equity, nutrition, psychology, dance, medicine, and science, and a plethora of things. And we are so happy to have you join us today. Today, we are talking about a topic that is very near and dear to my heart because I am passionate about it. Why do starving artists still exist? And it's not necessarily why do starving artists still exist, but why does the perception that you have to be a starving artist still exist? And we're going to dive into that today with Suzanne Purcell. We are happy to have her back with us. This is the second visit to Beyond the Steps, and I cannot wait to dive into this conversation. Please like, share, comment, engage. We want to know what you think. If you know somebody that needs to hear this conversation, tag them, bring them in, let them know that it's time to watch. And if they cannot watch today, they can watch all of our full episodes on YouTube or on Facebook at Apollo Performance or at TP Dance Creations. Without further ado, I would love for Bree to introduce Suzanne.
Thank you, Melissa. What's up, everybody? Happy Friday. We're so excited to welcome back Suzanne Purcell. Suzanne is the CEO of Rise Media and the founder and lead creator on Point to Rise podcast. She became affiliated with Confluence Ballet in February of 2022 through an interview with two of our company artists and seeing mutual interest and compatibility with the organization's missions, and joined the board soon after that as a former dancer who spent 25 years in the performing arts, experiencing firsthand how the industry functions. Suzanne uses her platform and her role within Confluence to expand the scope and reach of ballet and works to make the art form an equitable and sustainable career within Confluence and beyond. With over 10 years of experience in managing a Fortune 500 company, she built and led her own seven-figure business before combining her knowledge and passion into building the bridge between tradition and evolution with Rise. Suzanne, welcome back. Thank you for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you guys for having me back. Always looking forward to our conversations.
Yeah, I loved the last one. I'm so excited to get your perspective on all of this today. Before we get started, tell me a little bit, give us a basic understanding of the work that you're doing with Rise. Tell everybody about Rise and what your goals are for the organization.
So my big dreamy 30,000 foot vision is actually to find the way or a way or multiple ways to move the performing arts altogether, that entire industry, out of the financial stability that it's seeing right now, and finding ways, implementing ways on how they can make their own money and give them their power back, basically, so that all the things that we're talking on this podcast particularly about, we would no longer really need to talk about.
I love it. And I hate going back to the dreaded, the P word, the pandemic era. But if anything, if we learned anything from that time, it was how vulnerable this industry is financially, to crisis like that. And we just need to do better. I mean, literally, like I can say as a company that makes dancewear products, like that was such a scary time for us, but also for so many of our studio customers and our retailers. Like everything shut down, and I would go so far as to say sort of collapsed on itself, and we had to really build it back up. And I know I'm not alone when I say I don't want to see that happen ever again. Right?
Can I would like to add something to that. I think that the pandemic was the continuous 2x4 that was hit over the head to this industry, because let's be honest, every economic downturn we've seen, even just in the 2000s, had that same effect on the arts, but nobody was really talking about it. I had an interview with the executive director of Arizona Ballet, and she said the results of the 2012 crash they didn't see until 2 years later.
Yeah.
So the pandemic was yet another awakening. And I don't know how many more times we need to
Yeah.
go through this kind of, stressor until we, when I say we, as the industry, really learn and are motivated enough
Mhm.
to say enough is enough, and
Mhm.
we're open to change. We
Mhm.
Yeah,
can't
it's sort
say,
of like it's sort of like when you go through a personal health crisis and you're like your body's showing all these warning signs and you're like ignore it, ignore it, ignore it. Eventually it's going to catch up with you, right? Like I
Right.
feel like
yeah,
we're at that spot. And yeah,
not
I would
there yet, because
not
if
yet. You
you
don't
look,
think yet? Oh gosh.
no, because if you look what's happening in the industry, we're still complaining. We're
Mhm.
still pointing the fingers outwards and saying, hey, this is your fault, and government is not giving enough funding to us, and oh, there's inflation, and oh, we're not filling the theaters. But is anybody really starting to talk about possibilities versus saying we're doomed?
Mhm.
I haven't seen it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Is
There's
there?
no solutions yet. And I think that's where I love that that's where your head is at, because that's what we need. A lot of people don't realize how long it trailed on. And even in the States, like I think in the States, it took a long time to bounce back, right? But I can tell you the States came back before so many of our international friends. Canada really, really struggled. I mean, it took almost double the time to sort of bounce back from that, as did I think our friends in Australia are still struggling. Our European friends are still seeing the effects of it. So I think it's been very far reaching. And I think, we get consumed and stuck in our little bubble, but it's important to know like this has affected the industry worldwide. And certainly there needs to be a solution. So we're really excited to dive in today. And Melissa, that's a great segue into our first segment of questions.
Yeah, I want to dig into the historical context of how, what do you think, or how do you think, or from your experience, where did this whole starving artist concept come from? Because I know that, historically we think about artists and even in European nations as royalty was coming up, like dance and entertainment and those types of things were of value. And how did it become that this thing that was so valued and put on such a high pedestal by such esteemed people became, okay, we don't pay these people? Or it,
Because it's always like there's never been a point in my lifetime that I haven't heard that term or no.
right.
So when did that start and how? Do you
And why
know?
has it endured so
Yeah.
long?
Ha, yeah. Well, let me start with a belief is just a thought we keep thinking.
Mm,
And that has been passed on since the early 1800s, actually, where in Paris, out of all cities, a poet named Henry Murger
mhm,
wrote about the romanticization of giving yourself completely to the art, no matter what it takes,
mhm,
dying for it, starving yourself for it, and creating art just for the sake of creating art, which
mm,
actually served as a libretto for La Boheme, I believe, and for Les Mis.
mm,
So, and with that, he was actually talking about four other writers that he lived with, and he observed their behavior and how they were all living together and just, creating in their own little bubble art, but never had the ambition, or let's say even the feeling of deserving that they could make money with that.
Yeah.
mhm.
And this is where it started.
And just like
Romanticizing.
everything in dance, it sort of just
Oh,
is passed down
yes. And it
through
has
the
everything
generations,
to do,
right?
and this is my own interpretation of, again, a belief is just a thought we keep thinking. It has been passed on from generation to generation. And for some reason, we just think, we believe, we keep thinking that this is the only way we can make it happen. Because think, you're not an artist if you make money. You're a sellout when you make money. You're,
Exactly.
you
Yep.
are a sellout.
But in a world, this blows my mind, because in a world where it's it's where everybody's about making money, and right, like everybody wants to make money, everybody needs to make money to survive. Why are the performing arts so different? And why, when you have dancers who are, that's, by all rights, the toughest athletes in the world, why is there such a gap when you look at a professional dancer and a professional
Football
anything
player.
else, right? Like, how are they so far apart? Like, what is it?
Well, I don't have like a
Yeah,
deep
no,
for that.
I'm just
Let's explore
sure.
that though. And here's my version of that. So I believe particularly sports, right? They have been magnetized in terms of commercialization
Yeah.
of the institution. If you just look at all the brand deals and all the,
Sure.
they were never afraid of making money. There
Mhm.
was never a question about sports makes money. And it's a very simple concept. There are two teams, they chase after a ball, and there will be one winner and one loser. And this is very easy to follow. It speaks to the masses, and it's been done through history.
Mhm.
We're looking at arts. If we were to make it more simple, if we were to make it more accessible, if we were to integrate our audience actually into the process and even into the choice of, hey, what would you like to see? Like, aren't you sick of Nutcracker every year? Don't you want to see something else? Like, what would you like to see on the stage? It is, we're putting this barrier because arts wants to be so eclectic. So my German and so intellectual and smart, that we're forgetting that with that we're setting us so far apart that in a world where everybody today has so many choices and has an attention span lesser than a cockroach, you just don't, you're not fitting into what consumers actually want nowadays.
Right. It's very true.
So,
It's very true.
so that this is a great like lead into my question, which is, do you think there's validity to the starving artist stereotype? And do you think it exists today? Or, and I'm going to be controversial right here, do you think that artists lean into that stereotype and, use it as sort of a badge of honor?
There.
Yeah, huge badges. Absolutely. So does it still exist? Absolutely. I hear it all the time, not said out loud. But when you really listen, well, I shouldn't be making all this money. No, I don't think, I'm not going to look through my contract. Okay, I'm not getting paid. Yeah, I'll just perform anyways. So that is buying into the starving artist mentality, for me at least, not knowing your worth. What was the other question? There were like 3 questions in one.
I know. I throw them out there because I say like what's going through my head. It just all comes out.
Carrying them as a badge of honor.
Does it exist? You answered. Is there validity to that stereotype? And then, do you think that artists are leaning into that as a badge of honor? I think you answered everything, but
I think she froze a little bit.
Oh. If you're just joining, this is Beyond the Steps. I am Bree Zabrowski here with Melissa McDaniel of Turning Point, McDaniel Grisham of Turning Point Dance Creations. And this is the show where we talk about all things affecting performing artists, from racism, gender and equity, sex abuse and prevention, nutrition, psychology, and more. We're talking today with Suzanne Pershall from Confluence Ballet and CEO of Rise Media. And we're talking about, does the starving artist mentality exist? Why does it exist? And is it valid? So we're talking with Suzanne today, and excited to be having this conversation. We're having some connectivity issues, so I want to make sure we get Suzanne back. But to recap, we just basically talked about the historical context behind the starving artist label, as well as, is it a real thing? Is it a real thing? And like all things in the arts industry, it seems to be a term and a stereotype that has been passed down from starting back from the 1800s all the way till now. And it's something that we have to really just, I think, Melissa, do better, because we just keep
Yeah.
It's all of these things that have started so long ago that still exist, and there's just no reason for it to be,
Well,
right?
I
So
think
we
that,
have to evolve.
you really hit on the badge of honor that comes with it. And I hear it a lot in the teaching space, studio owner space, is that, well, it's for the kids. And I'm just here to make sure the kids have this great experience. And I don't wanna collect tuition, too much tuition, because then it'll prevent the kids. And the parents tend to use that as well. Well, I haven't paid tuition in 3 months. Well, we're going to have to discontinue classes, but she loves it.
But then, in many cases, and obviously there's exceptions to every rule, right? And I don't want to generalize and be broad, but this is a show that I can't possibly cover every perspective.
Right.
But then many of those same parents will turn around and pay thousands of dollars for football or soccer or
Mm-hmm.
gymnastics, or it's like, especially with dance, there's just this like,
Why? It's not worth it. Or what are you going to
this
do
is
with
a
it?
lack of validation to the art
Mm-hmm.
and the athleticism of it all. And that's, I think, where the disconnect is. I think it seems to be a double-sided problem, right? I think, like we explore a lot of themes on this show where dance is really slow to evolve
Mm-hmm.
and very traditionalist in nature, and I think that works against itself. But then also on the other side, there's this lack of commercialization of people not recognizing dance in that manner. So I think it's a two-pronged issue.
And Suzanne said something that I really, really thought was awesome when she talked about the whole idea of romanticizing art. Like the idea that you have to be a starving artist in order to actually be an artist. If you are doing it for any type of financial gain, then you're not a true artist. And there's a guilt around that. And there is a people try to guilt you. And then I think that what happened in capitalist society was that they began to manipulate that. So
Yeah.
as artists put that pressure on each other that, oh, well, if you're doing it for any type of financial gain, then you're not really an artist. You're not truly an artist. And capitalist society was like, great. Hey, I only want to hire real artists. And a real artist would work for X, Y, and Z small amount. That's not the actual value of what it is that they provide.
Yeah.
And I think that is where, we have gotten to this point, and we have to stop that. Like, we have to be able to say what we do is valuable, and the work that we do deserves compensation. And we have
but also as an industry, be open to changing what that means a little bit. I realize like there's going to be a whole bunch of people that go, we don't need to compromise our artistic integrity for commercialization, and everybody wants to hold true, but you can't have it both ways, right? And so there has to be some openness, like Suzanne said, to put what people want to see out there, so people are it's a business at the end of the day. To make more money, you have to have the demand, you have to have people wanting to come and see all of these things. And what do the consumers as a general population want to see? And I think that's where we have to examine how hard and rigid we want to be with those values. So it's a really great point, and we're going to dive in a little bit more, but for right now, this is Beyond the Steps. For anybody just joining, I am Bree Zabrowski with Apollo Performance Wear, here with my fabulous friend and co-host, Melissa McDaniel Grisham. This is Beyond the Steps. We are chatting today with Suzanne Pershall, CEO of Rise Media and director, or on the board of Confluence Ballet. We're talking about what is the starving artist mentality? Does it exist? Is it valid? We just got some historical context from Suzanne, and now we're going to dive even a little deeper. So Suzanne, in the era of the gig economy, how does freelance nature of the artists in the performing artists, but specifically dance and professions similar to that, contribute to the financial struggle of the artist?
That is such a great question. And let me take it from somebody that worked for companies. and never really was a freelancer, okay? It was very comfortable to be in a company, and you were also owned by that company.
Mhm.
Okay, you had to be a certain weight, a certain height, everything. Like, don't put this makeup on, everything. And I don't date this guy. I've heard it all. I've seen it all. And I wish that I would have had the courage early on in my career to say no and tap more into what my gut was always telling me, that I am too outside of the box thinking to actually fit into these procedures or boxes. Really, I just never felt comfortable there. And therefore was never really able to find the courage to express myself fully and believe in myself. So how does the gig economy, I think I would actually encourage more people to find more outside gigs, to really figure out what they like, what they don't like, who they like to work with, who they are, what they really want to do. When you're in a company, you relive the season over and over and over again. But when you gig, you go and choose.
So I want to introduce something that is happening. I'm personally experiencing right now. And my career has been long and vast, and I've done a lot of different things in the industry, from the professional side to the director, choreographer, educator side, to now being a product that we sell and make for dancers, right? And made with dancers in mind. And so kind of a lot of different perspectives. But what I'm seeing with dancers now is there's this, the social media explosion. You're a dance influencer, or you're somebody, you're competitive or recreational, and then you sort of transition to this professional career where you can go one of two ways. You can be, shoot to the top of the food chain, right, and have an agent and be, a bigger influencer and all of these things, or you sort of have this quiet career as a professional dancer, and there's value there, and you're contributing, and you're feeling fulfilled and all of those things. But what happens, I think, in other arenas and other athletics is they become profitable because they have agents representing them, whose job is to get them money, and as much money as possible, and have them on these brand deals that we were talking about earlier. And I think where dance seems to be missing the boat is we have, these professional dancers that go from these quiet careers and they want to just jump to the commercial. I've dealt with the agents and I'm telling you, these people are not doing these artists as great of service as they could. The artists are losing the ability to be able to represent themselves authentically and connect with businesses that want to do deals with them and promote them. Oftentimes agents are asking businesses for things that are completely unrealistic numbers that are tied to other, athletics and other industries, and they're just applying those numbers to dance, and the ROI does not match, right? And so it's very off-putting as a company that wants to work with artists and put artists in the forefront, because you're like, I've worked with so-and-so over here with X amount of followers and X amount of experience and X amount of, they have, case studies with the work that they've done. And we have nothing on the dance side, and we want to work with you. We want to showcase you, but maybe it's a revenue sharing program or something like that. And the agents just want a flat fee, but you have to earn that, right? And so yes, we want to commercialize, and yes, we want to put dancers in the forefront, but we also have to take that intermediary step where we're allowing the dancer to connect and represent themselves and demand to get paid. But the test case has to be there, I guess, is
You
what
have to
I'm
build the following. You have to build the story. You have to tell the story.
Yeah.
And in order to tell the story, you have to do some different things.
That's where I was going. And I think that's the piece that's missing right now for the dance world. Everybody just wants to jump to the dance celebrity status, but we don't even know really what that is, right?
So this is a very intriguing point that you're bringing there up, Brie. And I believe that fame has been just made look so easy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All
It's
social
not the
media.
truth. So
sure.
on social media, yeah. And if you know, nobody really talks about what's going on behind the scenes. And this is where authenticity and actually storytelling comes in. Talking about your why, for example, is what I feel is such a big thing that's completely missing in the arts. This is why they're struggling getting people on board. They're missing the point. It's not, you know, we're here and we're putting on a show, so come. It's not, that's not marketing in 2023. It's talking about why you're getting on the stage, why you're here, why you want to express yourself through your voice, your words, your music, or your dance. Let's take Matt Reef as an example. I saw him on I think he was on Joe Rogan. Okay, he's seen an incredible upscale success stream within 2 years. Like he went from 100, maybe 30 to 60,000 a year to millions a year. Okay. But he said, you know, you all just see those last 2 years. You didn't see the struggle, the 11 years prior to this that I went through, and nobody wants to talk about, you know?
That's anybody that's self-made. Everybody wants to go at the people that are at the top, but they didn't see the struggle that they took to climb that ladder, right? And there's all kinds of societal, you know, influences that we're not going to get into on this show, but there's all kinds of things that can contribute to that.
And maybe it's not the struggle, but it's the getting ready for it.
Sure.
It's the letting it in. It's the defining your craft.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because if we were having the magic wand and we would give everybody that wants the fame and fortune it right now where they're at, most of them would crash and burn because they're nowhere near the capability as a human being to actually be grateful for it and to thrive in it. It would perhaps even crumble them.
Well, to maintain it, it takes
to maintain it,
it takes certain characteristics.
Right.
You can't,
you have to build those characteristics in the journey. And I think that's why a lot of this is a very dangerous situation with the social media, where we take our teenage dancers and performers specifically and start to put them on social media and make them influencers at 8, 9, 10 years old. And they have these followers and they're making this money and they haven't actually taken the journey to be able to build the character that they need to be able to handle things like that. The same thing happens with child stars. You get them on, you know, they make all these millions of dollars, and when they become adults, it's like
they're screwed up. They can't handle it. Yeah.
They can't manage it. They can't manage it. And I think that there's also, for some reason, in the celebrity space, I wish we would get very comfortable, or dance space or art space, however, get comfortable with not being ashamed of the journey. I failed X amount of times. I got denied this many times. I was this happened this, and I think that there's a shame in that sometimes, to go back and say, yeah, I'm a millionaire, or I have X amount of followers now, but this is what it was like then. And I would love to have that vulnerability
about the journey. Yeah,
about the journey.
We don't hear that. We just see the wrapped up package that's tied nicely in a bow on and presented to the world on social or some sort of media outlet, right? But we don't have the backstory. And that's what I will say. And I went off some sort of a tangent, but that's what we do on the show.
Suzanne has a hand.
Quickly on the term or the topic of agents and what that could look like in the dance space, right? I fully agree. It does not apply to, well, first of all, do we really need an agent? Like, is that really a necessity, or have we created it to have a middleman so we don't have to promote ourselves?
I really don't come for me, people. Like, I know dancers need to be protected. I just wish that to Suzanne's point, I wish we worked on developing those skills for ourselves and be able to advocate for ourselves, because I'm telling you, there is a huge opportunity being missed. I cannot tell you how many people we have chosen not to work with because the agents want to nickel and dime. I mean, we're a small business too. We're not like, paper flying everywhere. Like we're very calculated with the money that we spend, and you have to have an ROI and all the things. And I cannot tell you how many times the door has been shut, not because of the artist, but because of the agent. And it is really disheartening because it's nobody. nobody wants to be taken advantage of. I think in most cases, I think there are situations where people can be taken advantage of, but in general, I think it needs to be mutually beneficial for both sides. And that's what people are trying to accomplish. And I think if you know how to represent yourself and sell yourself and advocate for yourself, then that should be a conversation that can be had very easily. Plus, you're making a more solid connection in being able to tell your own story instead of relying on somebody who's just out to get money,
right,
in the quickest way possible.
And this is where we're falling back into, well, it always has been this way, so I'm not going to bunk the boat. I'm just going to comply.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it is very, and I heard this beautiful segment this morning about how people keep people stuck. Even if we want to like use directors or managers or agents, they have them focus on the things that they can't control. They have them focus on what they don't have. And they have them focus on the past and the future. And this is how you take every single ounce of power a human being possesses away. Control, lack, future, and past. But if we were to turn that around, and if we were to shift our focus on the one thing that we can control, which is ourselves, if we were to focus on gratitude versus what we don't have, and if we were focusing on this very moment, because that very moment that we're living in every single second is where the creation always starts, then we would be seeing a completely different, not world, but, you know, you would experience everything that you're going through or looking and doing in a completely different way.
Absolutely. And I think to the point of agents, I want to go back to, I think that what tends to happen is because we don't have agency in this space as often, dancers and artists will give their whole business over to an agent because they know what they're doing. But you have to know your worth and know how to advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
So that you can your agent works for you.
Yeah.
That's the problem, Melissa. Right? That's the problem. Two, actually. Particularly dancers don't know their worth because from the time they put themselves into the studio, they're being told all the things that they're not. So how can they know their worth if they're not consistently working on keeping their worth or they're knowing about their worth? And it's also the lack of knowledge around business.
Right.
Well, and it's hard to quantify what the worth is because we're in an industry with no standardization at all. There is no metric. There is no, it's really hard to say, you know, you can't compare this to any other industry. It's so different and it's so unique.
I disagree.
You do? Okay, tell me why.
So let me ask you this question. What other industry would you compare it to just have a...
I don't know, because I just feel like there hasn't been the same evolution in the dance space. So it's hard for me to, like, I can compare it similarly to other industries in terms of like what should happen, right? But the way it is, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, let's just look at it from just the performing arts industry, right? Like anybody who needs a stage to perform. Okay.
Sure.
And yes, dance is the lowest in all performing arts industries in terms of salary, in terms of protection, in terms of demand.
Agreed. Yeah.
And the reason for it is, as you said, the evolution hasn't happened. It's not talking to the masses. It's talking to the people that are financing it. And they're dwindling out because this generation, the millennials and even Gen Z coming in, that will be the new financiers of the performing arts.
I like it.
They don't understand why they should give money to somebody that is just taking the money and not making anything, not making anything out of it, but just taking it and burning it and burning it. Like, we couldn't do that in business. We couldn't just take money and
exactly. You have to generate revenue, right? You have to generate revenue.
There is no, exactly. There is no focus on generating revenue. And I think that when you actually have to focus on generating revenue, you have to ask yourself the question, okay, is the product that I'm offering, is the why that I'm offering strong enough to attract the masses? So much that I'm actually stepping away, either break even or with profit. Let's just say, let's be bold, with profit. Okay. And not just one show out of the year, not just Nutcracker.
All year. Yeah.
Like all year. Like I'm talking about everything that
because your P&L has to show a profit at the end of the year.
Right.
Or break even, right?
I mean,
that's the business.
Ford, for example, I mean, they have, I don't know how many makes of cars. They have one car that actually has a profit, so much so that it carries the entire company. However, it's not a great model to follow, in my opinion. I think you need at least 3 or 4 products that are highly profitable in order to maintain, and then you can afford maybe, a low baller here and a low baller there. But Amazon would never put any more money into that kind of stuff that doesn't perform or make money, because what's the point? If nobody wants it, why would I still do it? And that is the point that particularly dance has missed, the adaptation to, hey, what would it look like if we actually would look at it from a business perspective? We can still uphold traditions and we can still operate and pass on traditions, but in a modern way. And that doesn't mean rolling around on the floor. That means looking at technology. How can we build that bridge? Looking at business. Who can we bring in? Do we really need 25 people on the marketing team, particularly with AI? No, you don't. You can get your overhead down drastically by just being educated and listening and have the right people in the right chairs to tell you this is where it's going and you need to lean into this.
And I see, listening to Suzanne, I look at the movie industry. Like there are actors. The actors are honing their craft. They are artists, but they have a very clear price tag on what they're doing. So this movie, I'm going to hire this actor. I'm going to let them do what they do. I'm going to make a movie, and the movie is going to make this much. And the movies continue to evolve. The storylines continue to evolve. The special effects continue to evolve. The way they market them continue to evolve. And dance doesn't have that. I get what you're saying in that it can. We just haven't actually made the jump to innovate.
Well, and I think that's really what this boils down to, is that you, in the movie industry, the ROI is there. The test case, as I was saying earlier, is there. Those people have a metric to be able to, like, if their movie does X amount, you're worth this much as an actor. Your paycheck goes to this, right? And so there's all these things already in place, but I think people are flocking and paying the money to see this entertainment medium. Dance, what I think I hear you saying, Suzanne, is like, we have to ask the hard questions. And to this point, I know a lot of people that I know in the dance world want to hold to their values, that not sell out sort of mentality. I'm not going to create this because it's selling out, or I'm not going to budge on this. I'm going to create this work because it fulfills me and it inspires me. I'm not going to do it because it sells tickets, right? And so there's that's do we even want to make that sacrifice as an industry? But I do think when you're talking about, I mean, as a business, it is exactly what Suzanne said. It's ROI, it's profit, it's break even, it's a simple numbers game. And in dance, we are not playing that game yet. And I think that we have to ask ourselves, A, do we want to play that game? But B, if we do, there's going to have to be some concessions, because you can't have it all in business. You just can't.
So can we reframe that a little bit? When you say you can't have it all in business, what do you mean by that?
I mean, there's not a finite amount of money for any business. You have to start, you have to make concessions, and you have to take the first step forward. And there's all kinds of things we want to do with Apala, but we have to wait. We have to accomplish X, Y, and Z first before we can get that thing, right? And that's true in any business. You have to start small and build up. So you all the big dreams and the ideas you have, sometimes you have to sacrifice those bigger ideas in the beginning to take that first step forward. And so I think you can have it all, but you just can't have it all
right
away.
now.
Right
now.
now.
Yeah.
Well, yes and no. I think it lays in the definition of having it all and what that looks like.
Sure, absolutely. And that's what I say. We have to examine what is that value system. Maybe we're having this conversation and dance just doesn't want that, right? Like the industry doesn't want that direction. Maybe we have to examine that.
But they deserve that direction. I think that
Sure.
that's the artists who are there deserve that direction. And if we do not make a change to where dancers begin to make more money and it begins to become a profitable profession, then it will dwindle out and it will die off.
But if you want that, not you, but just in general, if that is the goal, then you have to realistically look at what it takes to get
to do that. So I have
to ask yourself, are you willing to do that? Right.
And I hear Bree, like we have to decide that the Nutcracker is not it this year. It is this new product. And we have to be able to leave that, oh my gosh, I must do
it's the hamster wheel, it's the comfort zone. Yeah.
We have to be able to leave that. Suzanne, I see you.
Yeah. And I also want to, and it comes back to what we earlier said. It's about, I don't think we have to decide whether being artistic fulfilled or being a sellout. At least that's kind of how I heard it. I think you can combine being in business and being smart about business and leaning completely into it and just creating for the sake of it. Nobody in business creates a product, or nobody successful in business just creates a product for the sake of the product.
Right.
It doesn't work. Like those companies just don't exist for very long. Mm-hmm. Let's take ChatGPT. Like they met a demand, and within 5 days they had 1 million users. Now it's not that they're not struggling now to figure out, okay, this model doesn't bring enough money. We need to change here and change there. It's about looking at the problem, seeing it as it is, and then pivoting as fast without any emotional attachment. And that's what I think is the main point that's missing in the arts. Everything takes forever. Like there is no
so personal. Yeah.
Right. It's so personal. It's so emotionally involved. It's so, oh my gosh, if I can't do this, then I'm nothing. Because dancers particularly identify themselves with their job.
Yeah. It's so true. It's more personal than most professions, right?
Yeah, and it's so dangerous.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're seeing exactly the fruits of this kind of thinking. And Melissa, I really truly agree. And this is why I'm so passionate about getting all artists or entertainers out of this powerless kind of mindset that if we're not changing something in 30 years from now, there is no more money to give away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, we've said a lot in this segment. This has been a really powerful, important segment. I hope people listen to this because there's value here. But I want to call out, Suzanne, your point of before we move on to homework and the kind of wrapping up the episode. But we can start really simply by educating ourselves, making sure that we're aware of common business practices, utilizing all the tools at our disposal to work in our benefit, albeit AI, social media, that we know how to navigate those platforms. That's all just simple education, that we're aware of finances and math. Those are things that we can do to be in our own power. And I think, Suzanne, that's one of the most important things and the important steps here that you've said is we really have the power to do all of this on our own. We just have to take time to educate ourselves. So definitely a great point. And if you're just joining, I'm Bree Zabrowski, co-founder and CEO of Apollo Performance Wear, here with my friend and co-host Melissa McDaniel Grisham of Turning Point Dance Creations. We're talking to Suzanne Purcell today, CEO of Rise Media. also on the board with Confluence Ballet, 25 years of experience figuring out how to bring ballet to the forefront and make it more equitable. And we're really excited to be having the conversation today about what are starving artists? Where does that term come from? Does it exist? Is it still valid today? And how do we get off that hamster wheel? We're going to go to homework here shortly. But before we do, Suzanne, the last thing I sort of want to ask you is, how can this artistic community sort of come together to advocate for fair compensation and better economic conditions for artists? Are there successful examples of those collective efforts being done now?
Well, I think the actors and writers strikes is one big successful example that we've seen over the past year. I think it should serve as a prime example of what can actually happen when people combine their power and let go of fear that, I won't be hired again. I don't get this job. How am I going to eat? When you let go of all of these negative emotions and you just concentrate on what you are capable of, you can make mountains move. And I grew up in East Germany. I was 15 when that wall fell down. It wasn't somebody deciding that the wall needs to come down. It was all these people that a year and a half prior starting to show up on the streets every Monday. First it was 10, then 100, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s. It is leaning onto each other, feeding off each other's courage to say no to what you don't like and yes, what you do want to see. That change, nobody is going to bring to us. Nobody's going to serve it on a silver plate to us. Like it's all up to every single person by leaning into and understanding who they are and who they want to be.
Well, and before we go to homework, I want to say, if there was any doubt of how important the arts are, and dance specifically, look at what happened in the pandemic. That is literally what got so many of us through that time, was the entertainment and arts industry. And that writer strike, it was just a small indication of the gap missing in our world when everything came to a halt in the entertainment and arts industry. So imagine that being a more permanent situation. I don't think anybody wants that. I think there's so much value to be assigned and grabbed for this industry. I think we're all ready for dance to reach out and take their place in the world, right? And dancers and artists. And I hope this conversation sheds a little bit of light on that and gives some perspective. But Melissa, let's go to homework, because that's a huge part of this show. And I think, everything that we're saying starts with little baby steps and homework.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been such an amazing conversation. It's going to be, imagine, hard to boil it down to one thing, but Suzanne is so good at this, like being very concise. So I'm sure she's going to kill it. So we give homework here. You're a returning guest, so you know that. We want to give our viewers, listeners, one action that they can take between now and next show, which is 7 days, to make progress in this area.
In the area of not feeling like a starving artist anymore?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I would go back to basics and really write out every morning your achievements, what you have done in your life so far. And I'm not talking about the big, I've been Odette or a deal, or I starred in this movie. No, the little things. Today, I didn't get triggered through this comment. Today, I gave this homeless person $10, even though I don't have, these are the little things that will build your confidence, that will then make you feel more sure of yourself. And that just represents yourself better in every room. Like your energy will change, how other people will perceive you will change. It's still hard for me to do, because we are so good at talking about all the things that we're not great at, and so not good at what we're actually really good at, because we think we're, full of ourselves, or whatever the narrative is. So start with that. and actually keep track how much resistance you have to doing that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give a sub homework assignment today just because I never do this, but I think it's so important. Ask yourself, how are you telling your story? If you have an agent, get on a call with them and how are you telling my story? What are you doing? How are you representing yourself in your business and on any platform? And how is your agent, if that's applicable, representing you? Start asking those questions and diving deeper and go, can I do better in this area? Because I think there's a huge, obviously from the show, we've identified a gap there, but yeah. So homework for everybody.
So
Good one.
homework and sub homework. I have another homework assignment for you, but it is the same every week. It is very easy and it is very free. Go to Apollo Performance and take the Steps initiative. It is the course that started this whole Beyond the Steps movement. And we are so excited that it is still available for you. It is free, a number of modules on racism, dance medicine, and science, sex abuse and prevention, nutrition, psychology, you name it. It is all free and it is there for you. Bree has popped that link up onto the screen. So please make sure you go and take that. Suzanne, I know that you work with companies. You are very passionate about this through Rise Media. How can people get in touch with you?
Well, you can get to point_2_rise. That's Instagram. I'm mostly though on LinkedIn nowadays because that's more my audience. Under Suzanne Purcell, you can find me there, or you go to rise.io.
2rise.io. Got it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Suzanne, for being here. This has been an incredible conversation. And I think if anybody out there, please watch. That's how we get this information out in the community. So it's an absolute pleasure to have you back.
Thank you.
For all of you out there,
I'm not sure what's happening.
Oh, can you hear us okay, Suzanne? Uh-oh.
Well, now we can't go, Bree.
Nope.
Now, but hopefully you can hear us. So this has been another fantastic episode of Beyond the Steps. We are live every Friday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Share, like, subscribe. You can find us on YouTube at Apollo Performance and TP Dance Creations. If you have a topic you want to be a guest on Beyond the Steps, message us, DM us on any of our social platforms. We want to hear from you. We are already booking into Q3 of 2024, Melissa. So we are way ahead of schedule, but we have room for more guests and more topics. So let us know, hit us up if you want to hear about something specific. We would love to dig in. That's what we do on this show. Next week is a surprise Flashback Friday episode. Once per month, we're sharing our favorite thought-provoking episodes from seasons 1 through 3. Maybe you'll even see another episode with Suzanne. You never know. You have to tune in to find out. Until then, we hope you continue your journey beyond the steps. Everybody have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you soon.